traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat people, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. Each month, Community Living Toronto's Community Engagement Speaker Series highlights different topics of interest, providing education and information to people with disabilities, their families, caregivers, and the community at large. This month, we're so pleased to welcome Velvet Jaimes from the DSO Toronto Regional Office. Today, Velvet will be talking about the DSO, how to register, apply for services, eligibility requirements, service linking, ministry-funded services that may be available, outside community resources, and passport funding. And with that being said, Velvet, I will hand it over to you.
Hi everyone. I'm just gonna, share my screen really quick here. Yes, so hi, my name is Velvet, like he said, and I am from Developmental Services Ontario, Toronto region. I've worked with the DSO for about 13 or 14 years, since 2012. So just the year after they began is when I started with them and in various roles, doing various different service navigation, but eligibility, registration, and matching and linking or service connections. And so I've done a little bit of everything over the years, and I'm happy to talk to you today about those things. And if you have questions, I tend to talk a lot, so I'm sorry, and I will try to get through everything, and then I will have some time to answer whatever questions might come up. Hopefully I'll answer some of those questions that you might have as I'm going through the presentation. So DSO, a lot of you probably are already familiar with DSO, but DSO stands for Developmental Services Ontario. We're the Toronto region. If your postal code starts with an M, then you would be part of the Toronto region DSO. And if you are any other postal code, then you would go to the dsontario.ca website and you can find your local DSO for services. And DSO is the central point of access for any adult ministry funded developmental services. So when you turn 18 and you need any adult services, you would want to apply through the DSO. There are 9 DSO regions, and each region is administered by a local service agency, and the local service agency here in Toronto is Surrey Place. A lot of people get confused about what is the relationship between Surrey Place and DSO, and that's really it, is that we're under the same umbrella of the Ministry of Community and Children and Social Services, but Surrey Place administers the DSO here. And what is the role of the DSO? So the first thing that we always do is register and determine eligibility of individuals who are requesting ministry-funded developmental services. If they are found eligible, then we assess the needs of those individuals to determine appropriate services and supports, and then we connect those individuals to funded services and supports that are offered by the local service agencies. So we're more of the I like to think of us as sort of a brain of the information holder for all the agencies that actually provide the services. We don't actually provide housing or case management or programs ourselves. The service agencies that do come to us when they have spots to fill, and then the DSO uses that information we've collected to find that. And we also give that information to the ministry so that they can get a big overview or big picture of the needs of the city and of Ontario in general, and where we need to fill some holes. So in order to contact DSO, so say you are wanting to register or wanting to ask a question, the first thing that you can do is call us. We have an 855 number. You can also call 211 and ask to speak with DSO. That number, if you call 211 or the 855 number, is answered by a 211 operator 24 hours a day, and they answer in multiple languages. So if English is not your first language, that's a good place to start, because they can ask DSO to call you back with a translator present to do the registration. You can also register online if you go to surreyplace.ca or to dsontario.ca. Both Both websites have an online portal where you can register that way. And probably the easiest way to register is to email us. We have an email, dsotr@surreyplace.ca. If you send us an email and say, hi, I'd like to apply for services, or my son or daughter would like to apply for services, and then we can respond. Whichever service navigator is on duty would send you the intake form and explain what we need. And anyone can apply on anyone else's behalf, but DSO will collect consent from the individual or from their substitute decision maker. It's usually a parent or guardian in order to proceed with that application. And you won't be assigned to a specific DSO worker. You're not going to have a worker. You're not going to say, I need to speak to my worker and we'll know who that is. There are 6 service navigators in Toronto for DSO, and we rotate being on duty or being on intake each day. So depending on which day you call or email us, you might get a different worker, but we try to work as quickly as we can to answer your questions, and we all have access to the same information and data in our system. So if you are 18, so the criteria and the required evidence to be connected to DSO, there are 3 big things. One is that you're 18, service starts at 18, but you can apply as early as 16. And if you are unsure about if you should apply, I'd encourage you to do so, or at least to reach out and ask questions. You must be an Ontario resident, so you must live in Toronto, specifically for DSO Toronto region, and you must live in Ontario and have proof of being in Ontario. So an Ontario health card it verifies both of those things, your age and your Ontario residency, and it's the easiest thing. But if you don't have a health card, then you can talk to us about other documents that you could provide to us. And the most important thing is that you have a developmental disability, of course, and that is defined by the ministry as a significant cognitive and adaptive functioning delays that are from birth or childhood and expected to be lifelong in nature. And what we usually use to determine that your eligibility or that you have a developmental disability is an Ontario psychological assessment. If you don't have an assessment from Ontario, sometimes if you have an assessment from somewhere else, we could have the Surrey Place psychologist review it, and they might sign off on your eligibility if the information is proving that you have a disability. Sometimes we can refer you to get a new psych assessment if we feel like it's appropriate. So if you don't have an Ontario psych assessment, but you really feel like you or whatever person you're applying for would meet criteria, then just give us a call or send us an email and we can have that discussion further. Okay, so often people confuse these 2 items, DSO and ODSP, and understandably they look very similar and do similar jobs, but just to give you a little bit of overview of the differences between DSO and passport funding and Ontario Disability. DSO stands for, again, Developmental Services Ontario. ODSP stands for Ontario Disability Support Program. You must have a developmental disability in order to qualify for DSO. To qualify for ODSP, you can have many disabilities, including developmental, but you could also have a physical disability or a mental health diagnosis to qualify for ODSP. DSO covers respite and community participation, or we call them day programs or maybe work programs or employment programs. And ODSP covers things like food and shelter, your basic needs. And passport funding is a reimbursement program. If you have SSAH or special services at home, it's very similar to that, where you would submit a receipt and then you would be reimbursed for that receipt that you submitted within a couple of weeks usually. And ODSP is a monthly direct deposit. So if you're getting ACSD or assistance for children with severe disability, they do the same thing where it's a monthly direct deposit that you can put towards those basic needs. Okay, so if you are eligible and if you are 18, so if you're not 18, you're really just sort of waiting to turn 18 to access our services. But if you are eligible now and you've turned 18, then DSO is going to add you to our application package waitlist when you turn 18. If you're not 18 when you're found eligible, we'll add you when you turn 18. The waitlist for this the wait time for that assessment can be up to 2 years. So if you are in urgent need of specific services, then please let us know so that we can make sure to prioritize you as needed, because otherwise you're going to be probably waiting. I think I say 2 years, but I think the average wait time right now is about 18 months, which is still quite significant, but we do try to prioritize those who need it the most. Passport funding. So if you are 18, you can contact us to request your base amount of funding, which is right now it's $5,500 a year. And anyone who's eligible for DSO is entitled to request that funding. And once we request it, it takes a couple of months for Passport to then respond, but then they'll get your funding activated and explain to you how to use that funding. You can apply for ODSP as early as 17 and a half. You don't really need to apply that early if you have a DSO letter. It only takes a shorter amount of time, but as early as 17 and a half, you can start the process of applying for ODSP if you did want that funding. And your DSO letter just facilitates that process. Normally, when you apply for ODSP, you have to prove that you have a disability. But if you have your DSO letter, you've already proved that part of the application. You've already proved you have a disability, but you still need to prove what your financial income is. So you would reach out with your letter, and then there's a portion of the application you'll need to complete to do with your finances. Okay, and then we have a worker with us. Her name's Alex, and she's a housing navigator. She works with there's a housing navigator in each region, each of the 9 DSO regions, and they often are working together to come up with presentations to help people learn about community housing options as an alternative to ministry funded supportive housing. As you probably all know, there's a long wait for housing. There's not enough housing to go around for the people who do need it. And we're looking at where in the community someone might be able to get connected to service and have that support built in somehow by working together and looking at those outside resources. So you could request to speak to our housing navigator or attend one of their events. They usually post events on the DS Ontario website, and if there are any webinars going on. And then clinical and specialized services at Surrey Place. You can request these as early as 18, as soon as you turn 18. If you need clinical services before 18, you can still request them, but you'd be going through Surrey Place's Children and Youth Department. Now, what are some of those clinical programs at Surrey Place? Behavior therapy or BT, occupational therapy or OT. I'm trying to include the acronyms for each of these things. I know that we use so many acronyms, it's hard to keep them straight. So forgive me if I use too many of them, but I am trying to add that in the presentation. They have a psychology department, a psychiatry department, the FASD clinic, counseling services. They have a family medicine consultation clinic. They have audiology and speech and language. I don't believe they offer speech therapy for adults, but they do a speech and language assessment for adults. There's a plus 45 clinic for our clients who are over the age of 45 and might need perhaps medical services. And then there are some specialty groups, and this is just a list of what there are currently. Those are the groups that are running right now. But sometimes those groups will change depending on the availability of the workers at Surrey Place to provide those groups. And the wait times for those aren't as long as perhaps some of the other services. I know the wait time for behavior therapy and occupational therapy are both several years. I'm talking about maybe 3 or 4 years long to get those services. So just keep that in mind that there is a wait, and the sooner you can get on those, the wait list for those, the better, because it is a time-weighted wait list. Okay, so if you are found eligible, as I mentioned earlier, you're going to be added to that application package wait list with the DSO, and you're probably going to be waiting around 18 months, and then we're going to reach out to you to schedule that meeting and the package. It's not actually a package, it's actually an interview or a meeting that you're going to have with a DSO qualified assessor. Usually it's the client and then one or two people who know them well at the meetings. Usually it's 2 meetings we're going to contact you. Usually we're doing them virtual now. Sometimes we do them in person as needed, but since COVID, I feel like a lot of things have moved into that virtual realm, and for a lot of families, it's easier just to do these things virtually. So if you do need it in person, we can certainly arrange it, but otherwise, we would contact you to do the meetings virtually. Each of the meetings are a couple of hours long. They're fairly I think it's like 2 or 3 hours for each meeting. So they are very intense, covering the two different parts of that application package. The first part is called the ADSS, or the Application for Developmental Services and Supports, and that's where DSO is going to get to know you, get to know what supports you currently have. So, do you live with one parent? Do you live with two parents? Are you in school? Do you go to any programs or after school activities? And then what services are you going to want in the future? So as an adult, what services do I want to be waiting for? And then the second part is called the SIS, or the Supports Intensity Scale. And this is where the assessor gets to know the details of the level of support that you're going to need for all areas of your life. So they're looking at just in general, what are your daily living skills looking like, and what are your medical needs looking like? What are your behavioral support needs looking like? So gathering all of that information. And then all of that's compiled together. It's called the application package, and this interview is the same across Ontario. It's meant to be completed only once. Hopefully you only ever have to. However, if you have significant changing needs, we could potentially do another meeting in the future. Hopefully you won't ever have to do that. And this assessment must be completed in order to be considered for any ministry funded support. So if you are wanting, let me just go to the next page, because these are the supports that you can potentially be in line for once you've completed your application package. So the first, I feel like this is the most important one that people are looking for, is additional passport funding. So beyond that 5K, if you're only getting the 5,500 base funding, if you need additional passport funding, the way they determine how much more funding you're going to get is through the information in that application package. They're going to take all that information, they plug it into their database, and they come up with how much more you're going to qualify for. So how much more funding you get is based on that assessment and your current circumstances. So it's not based on how expensive your day program is. They're not looking at that. They're looking at you personally and your overall needs, and your overall support system that you have in place. So if you have, how many caregivers you have, etc. And then community participation supports, or CPS, which usually means a day program. So you can be waiting for ministry funded programs. A lot of the programs that are ministry funded are not as high support as what a lot of people need. We very rarely have people posting, or agencies posting, one-to-one support program spots. They just don't come up often. So just keep that in mind. If you are waiting and hoping for a one-to-one funded program, they are few and far between. So it's really important to plan for outside resources. There's a lot of employment and vocational support programs, and we can add you to the registry. I think there's about 15 service agencies in Toronto who offer these supports, and I can show you the list of those agencies later. But most of them will have funded and fee-for-service options, so you can take a look at both of those things with each agency and what the cost of that looks like. Another good one is person-directed planning. We offer that as a funded service. So there's certain agencies that offer PDP with implementation, which means they help you create a plan, and then they help you carry out that plan. And then without implementation is where an agency would work with you to create a plan, but then you would be required to carry out that plan on your own. So you'd be expected to do that independently. But it is an important thing, especially if you're not really sure what your future is looking like and you need some help with that or assistance with that. It's a good thing to request. Case management, the same thing. If you have goals, if you have specific goals that you're working on with that you need a professional or someone in the industry to help you with, you can reach out and ask for case management. And housing. So there's a few different kinds of housing. We have supported independent living, or SIL, and we have supported group living, or SGL, host family, and those are the three big types of housing. We most often have supported independent living come up, and then supported group living. And the big difference between those two is really that supported independent living offers a weekly amount of support, up to 20 hours a week. Most of them are less than that. Most of them are maybe 10 hours a week of support. And supported group living is where you would have a daily amount of support. And that amount of support could range. It could be anywhere from 1 hour of support to 24 hours a day support. And we're going to match you to something that is appropriate for you. So you'd be on the registry for all programs or all housing if you're requesting those things. But we're only going to connect you to the ones that are appropriate for you. So you don't have to worry about requesting one versus the other. We're looking at your application needs assessment to determine that. So just a little bit more about vacancy management. Wait times for funded services are unpredictable. We get that question all the time, where am I on the list? But they're unpredictable because those service registries are prioritized by need and not time weighted. And that DSO must then wait for the service agencies to declare a vacancy. So you can be, so say you are in dire need of housing, for example, we can update your profile, make sure your profile is as high a priority as it can be. But the next step is that we have to wait for something that's a good match for you. And if the agencies aren't posting, a group home that, supports certain behaviors, and that's what you need, you're going to be waiting a long time. But if you maybe don't have a lot of high needs and you're urgent, you might come up sooner for something. So we're looking at the availability of something from an agency. We're looking at your compatibility for that, and where you are compared to everyone else who's waiting on those wait lists, priority wise. So I think there are about 6,000 people waiting for day programs, and probably a similar number for housing. I'm sorry, I don't know the exact numbers, but something in that range. And they just they don't get posted very often. So I often encourage people to just proceed as if you're not going to get a funded anything and hope that you get something. But in the meantime, you need to plan it using your passport dollars, make sure your profile is as high a priority as it can be, and reach out to DSO as needed to try and connect you to the services that you do need. There are just many more people waiting for those funded service spots than there are spots available. And one way that you can do that is just to make sure you keep in touch with us. So make sure you're calling us to report changes in your contact information so that if you do come up for something, we can reach you. Reach out to report significant changing needs of the client or of the caregivers. Sometimes caregivers are, they're burnt out. I hear the word burnt out a lot. Caregivers they're at the end of their rope. They don't know where to turn to next. They're stressed about some particular item. And if we can try and help you with that, we will. So reach out. If you're approaching a crisis, if you're facing homelessness, if someone has been hospitalized, like a caregiver, and you need temporary supports to come in and help you while you recover, we can offer that. If there is any police involvement, if a client has broken the law, we can sometimes connect you to a dual diagnosis justice coordinator to help you through that process. Anytime you want to review or update your file, so say you didn't request housing when you were doing your assessment, but now you've decided I want to be in the queue for housing, then we can add you to housing. So if you want to update your file in any way, let us know. And if you need any supports or services information, if you're finishing school and you want to know, what programs are nearby or where you should look or where you should get started, how you can find a staff, member or PS personal support worker to help you. We can point you in the right direction. And these are the main resources that we usually send people to when they do reach out. The big one is our Surrey Place website. I'm going to go through these quickly, and then I want to show you the Surrey Place website live, if that's okay, so that we can sort of I can talk you through where to find these things. But so the Surrey Place website has all of these things listed under DSO Toronto. DSO Toronto region has a Facebook group as well. I think there's about maybe 800 clients are on that Facebook group now, and anytime an agency, a local agency posts something, private agencies as well as ministry agencies, we usually share it on our Facebook group so that it gets out to the general public. So if you're looking for, you know, a cooking class or an upcoming program of some kind, they often post them there, yoga classes, things like that. It's a good place, and also families can talk to each other on that group. Connectability.ca is a great resource for it has children's resources as well, but also adult resources. And they have a big fee-for-service directory that we connect people to. And similar to that directory, we have a map, which I'll show you. I'll show you in a minute as well, that has a bunch of fee-for-service options if you are looking for programs or respite in your area. My Community Hub has a lot of Community Living Toronto programming listed there, but they do have a few other agencies that post on My Community Hub. So if you're not a member there, you could log in and see what they have available. The DS Ontario website, I find the most that's posted, or the most important thing that's posted there are with those housing navigators that work together across regions, and with the different webinars that are posted on the calendar. So that's a good website for that. Surrey Place is offering, so a lot of people call us looking for a case manager, and through the Surrey Place Adult Wellness site, they have something called a resource day, where you can register to speak one-on-one to a case manager from Surrey Place for an hour, and get them to help you with whatever it is that you need. So if you're looking for a program, or if you need help filling out an ODSP form, or need help filling out some other kind of form, or just need sort of direction and what to do next, but you don't want to wait for you to come up for a case manager through the wait list, or we try not to call it wait list, through the service registry, then you can sign up for an adult resource day. It's free. The only requirement is that you're a DSO client, so you can sign up anytime and have a case manager, at least for that hour of support. I think they do it monthly, so you can sign up if it's not. I think the next one is October 28th, but you can go on the resource day on the wellness site and check that. And I PDF'd this whole presentation, so Tom can share the PDF with you, and all of these are hyperlinks, so you can go to the hyperlink and look that up if you wanted to. And I mentioned person-directed planning earlier as a ministry-funded option, but there's also fee-for-service person-directed planning. Quite a few agencies offer this, and you can use up to $2,500 of your passport funding every year towards person-directed planning. So if you've got nothing else going on and you're not sure where to spend your passport funding, this might be a good thing to spend it on, even just for 1 year, to try and figure out, create that plan for yourself for what to do next. CLT does offer person-directed planning. Geneva, Montage, and Corbrook, they all offer person-directed planning. And there are some private agencies that offer person-directed planning as well, which you could use your passport funding with. And if you wanted to know some names, you can call DSO and we can give you some more options for that. So sorry, I wanted to let me go back here. So let me just go into this website here. Hopefully this will work here. So this is the Surrey Place website. This Surrey Place website is offered in multiple languages. So if English is not your first language, you can translate it to whichever language you speak in, and it'll go into that language. we're going to keep it in English, but I'll show you quickly that, you know, if you were to say French, it'll switch everything over to French. Just FYI, it's a good resource if English is not your first language. And then if you go under services and click on DSO Toronto, it'll take you to our main page, and this kind of gives you an overview of everything we just talked about. Like if you clicked on the service navigation tab, it'll explain to you what is the application package. There's a cute little video about what is the application package and what does it entail. And then it talks about those different supports that I've talked about today, about the different kinds of things you can ask for. And then on that main page of the DSO Toronto, if you scroll down and you click on, there's something under resources called While You Wait. And this is, we call this While You Wait. So while you're waiting for ministry funded services to come up, this is kind of where else you're going to look. So it's just letting you know how to reach DSO, what services are available once you're found eligible, and what services are available once your application package is completed. And then where you can look for supports while you're waiting for those services. So if you click on recreation programs, there's a whole list of good resources of where to look for programs. And one I just wanted to show you was one of my colleagues is working on this fee-for-service map, and it's something I hope maybe we can add to connectability, because I think it's a really great thing to have and makes it easier for people to see. But this is our resource map where, say if you lived, you know, say you lived in the West and you wanted to find a respite or overnight respite in the West, then you can unclick the other options and it'll show you, you know, these are the places that offer overnight respite in your area. So if you needed somewhere to stay for a night, you can click on that and then it gives you the contact information for that agency. And when we have it available, we usually let you know how much the cost is. So you can see CLT has Sibley Respite, and this is the cost. This is how you contact them. And it has both private agencies as well as ministry agencies on here. We have a kind of a combination of everything. And it's just a good place to start if you're not sure what's in your area. So that's one thing I just wanted you to see. See if I can go back to the DSO Toronto. And staffing services, we used to have respiteservices.com, which helped people find respite if they were looking for a respite worker. Respite services closed down, unfortunately. So if people are looking for staffing, this is a good place to start. There is that on that map, there are options for respite. If you were looking for respite, you can check this list for those respite options, but you can also, if you're looking for specifically for staff, we would suggest you take a look here at these options. Everything's very expensive now, unfortunately. I think that's really the big problem, is that the workers cost a lot more and passport funding has not increased much in the last 10 years. So we are aware and we understand, but if you were looking for a worker, then these would be some good agencies to just get started and take a look. All right, and let's see. If you need any kind of crisis supports, there's a whole list of places you can go for crisis supports, mental health services, legal matters. The DSO Facebook group, I think I mentioned that already. You can see we've posted things here, like Autism Ontario is having board game social at Snakes and Lattes. Sunflower Respite. Sunflower is a private agency, but this is they have an independent living program that started now where they teach you how to live on your own. Information about adult guardianship, things like this. Yeah, so just if you do have Facebook and you're able to join that group, it's a good thing to have just popping up for you as things come into us. We can share it with you. And I think Connectability also has on their website something similar. So they often are sharing information on their think it's here. They often have information coming up similar, these local community news as they get them. I think they're posting them here too. So it's kind of a bit redundant, but for people who are on Facebook, it's good to have it in both places. Okay. So I think that's, oh, and I wanted to show you, sorry, one more thing was on the Surrey Place Wellness. So under services, if you go to the wellness services, you can browse the calendar. It's going to encourage you to create an account, so you can create an account. I already created myself an account, so I can just show you really quickly what this would look like if you wanted to sign up for an adult resource day to have that one-on-one case management. So it's just signing me in, and then I can browse events and I can look up. You can sort by certain things of what you're looking for, but if I wanted to look for adult resource day, let's see, here's one. Oh, it's October 30th. Sorry, I think I told you October 28th, but the next one is October 30th and it's online. So she can usually sign up, I think, for 7 people each month, because that's how many hours in her day she has to speak to people. So you can try and log in and sign up for that day. So if you wanted that, you would just click on it and they would show you how to register. They'd explain to you sort of what they can offer. And then they'll send you an invite and you would log in through Teams and have a chat with somebody one-to-one. Okay. Go back to my presentation here. Come on. Here we go. All right, and I think that's everything I have. But again, if you need to reach out to us, please do call. You can call 211 or our 855 number. You can reach us online through the Surrey Place website. The quickest way, like I said, the most direct way is to email us through DSOTR and say, can somebody call me? Or you can ask the question via email if you'd like. All right. I'm just going to minimize this so I can see you. Okay, so I will open the floor. I don't know if people are asking questions in the chat, but I'm happy to answer any questions people have.
Hannah was saying thank you for your wonderful presentation.
Thank you, Hannah.
I guess I'll get the ball rolling.
Sure.
Pertaining to passport funding, would someone's passport funding change with respect to their supports intensity scale assessment?
Yes. So sometimes they'll get their base funding usually when they turn 18, and then when they've completed their application package, based on that application package, they call it mapped, but they'll be mapped for an additional amount. Some people are only mapped for, $1,000 more. Some people are mapped. I think the maximum amount you could get is 45,000 a year. So someone with very high needs might get that closer to that maximum amount. And I don't know where you fall in that range, but you could fall anywhere from that 5,000 to 45,000. And the only way and then the way that it's determined that that those funds can be released to you is by the ministry. So the ministry kind of has their hands on those purse strings, and they're letting Passport know you can release that additional funding um, to these people in this priority range next. So then Passport will know, okay, I can approve these people for their additional funding. So you might be waiting for that additional amount. We call it funded and waiting. So if you've had your assessment, you're still only getting the base amount of funding. That probably means you might not be prioritized enough yet to get that additional funding. So sometimes we can do things, we can make updates to increase that priority so that you hopefully would get your full amount. But once you've been approved for your full amount, so say they've contacted you and they said your full amount is going to be $22,000 a year. That's your that's what we've approved you for. If you've already had your application package, it's really hard to get more than that, honestly, because unless your needs change significantly, there's nothing for us to update to the passport office to increase that amount. So only by DSO changing the information that passport has, that's the only way to change the amount that you're getting. So if you do have significant changing needs, like as an example, say you used to be able to walk and now your needs have declined, you now need to be in a wheelchair. That's a significant changing need, and that could affect how much funding you get. Or say you used to only have one kind of behavior and now you finish school and suddenly you have 6 different behaviors. We can update your file to reflect that, and hopefully you'd be approved for additional passport funding. The problem that sometimes we face is that a lot of families are trying to they want to get as much funding as they can, of course. So that it's and I encourage people to try and get, not to I don't want you to lie and say I need these are my needs when those aren't your needs, because that can sometimes hinder your ability to get anything that is funded. So if an agency says, oh, I have this supported independent living vacancy for somebody, but they can't have a behavior where they are aggressive towards other people. And during your assessment, you said, my son is aggressive towards other people for whatever reason. Well, you're not going to be a good match for that vacancy. So we're not going to put you forward for that vacancy. So the more behaviors we're adding on, or the more medical needs we're perhaps adding on for you, that can affect your ability to get that funded space later. It might give you more passport funding now to help with respite and programming, but it's not going to give you. So I guess it really depends on what is your end game, or, is your goal really to get more passport funding, or is it to eventually get a funded space somewhere residentially or with CPS? I think the key really is to be as honest as you can. If you're under a lot of stress, like that is something that we can record. We can say this parent's caregiver's ability to provide support has decreased and they can no longer provide the support that this person needs, and we can make some of those updates, and sometimes those updates can increase your priority to get more funding. So I think just be as honest as you can, and then we'll take that information and do as much as we can with it to make sure that you're getting hopefully either connected to a program or connected to housing, depending on what you're calling us about.
Super. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for that. We have a question from Kevin. And
Okay.
Kevin, we might need some more context. So the question is, how would I submit an invoice for services provided, and what forms would I need for direct deposit? I'm not sure if this is related to passport funding.
Yeah, I think it's related to passport. So if you have passport funding, if you've been approved for passport funding, then you would be connected to a passport coordinator. And when you first start with your passport funding, someone is assigned on your account. So it's either the client themselves or their caregiver is assigned as we call it person managing funds, or PMF. And that person managing funds, so there's forms that get filled out at that time where that person who's managing funds would complete all the banking info. So they'd explain which bank account this is going to. If it's not the individual, if it's their caregiver whose bank account it's going into, then there would be questions about the consent and who's allowed to, do you have consent to take over the care of this funding for this person? And then, yeah, so there are forms that need to be completed. So if you haven't completed those, or if you're not sure, I would suggest you reach out to your passport funding coordinator just to find out who is my person managing funds. And then if you're wanting to submit receipts for if you're wanting to submit receipts for something and you think that you already have an account set up, there's 2 different ways that you can submit them online, and then you can also submit them via fax. So you can send them that way. I don't know if you want to, if you had a specific question about that, you can let me know and I can check who your passport coordinator is after this, or you can send me an email and I'm happy to answer more directly to you for that question.
Super. Joshua is saying, my super and I think this is just a comment. My
Mm-hmm.
super and I reached out to DSO to support a person involved with the legal system. They connected us to the DDJC from
Mm-hmm.
Surrey Place. Christina is great. She offered lots of support for the person.
Good.
So,
Yeah, she's great. Yeah, if anyone needs that service, it's a good one.
and sorry, the acronym DDJC, what does that stand for?
It's Dual Diagnosis Justice Coordinator.
Ah,
So they
okay.
help, like usually there's some sort of a lawyer involved, but they just sort of help. They're very familiar with the judicial system and they know, what sort of evidence the court might ask for to sort of show that this person has a disability and this is why this happened and maybe, go easy on this person. So they just help in the court systems.
Super. Thank you so much for that.
Hmm.
Eric has a question. He's asking, can a supports intensity scale be done again, or is it done by DSO only once? My son's need for support has increased since
Hmm.
his SIS assessment was done 8 years ago. His scale was at 19 percentile. Thank you.
Yeah, yes. If his needs have increased, you can definitely reach out to us, and we try not to redo an assessment within 1 year. So if someone's had an assessment and they're reaching out, 8 months later and saying I need a reassessment, unless you've got, some crazy changing need, we're not going to do it again because there's already an 18-month wait list for an assessment. And there's, people haven't had their first assessment yet, but we do understand that there are circumstances where people have had significant changing needs, and if it's been 8 years, and those needs have changed, I think it's worth revisiting. So yes, please do call us and request a reassessment, and we'll kind of go over what those changes are, and then there's an assessor supervisor who would then ultimately decide, is this warranted, and then put you back on the list for that to get that reassessment. And sometimes it might be done quickly, depending on the circumstance. Sometimes they can try and prioritize that assessment, and sometimes you might wait a while, but they'll kind of make a judgment call once they know your circumstance.
Thank you. Looks like Josh is typing another question. I think he's typing. Not sure. Oh, here we go. Okay, super fantastic. Good timing. Does the DSO have any additional resources to support people who are transgender or in the process of transitioning? Would they be eligible for additional funding, transportation, hotel stay for recovery?
Hmm. I don't think that would fall under. I mean, the only funding we're really connected to is the passport funding, which is used for um, community participation and respite. So I don't think it would qualify. I mean, you might be able to cover the cost of transportation to and from places. Transportation is something that can be covered with passport funding. Um, yeah, and then there might be something so there's an agency called Luminous, and Luminous is sort of an umbrella agency now, and they have a few different agencies under them, but Luminous has something called urgent response supports and transitional supports. So people who are uh, transitioning from hospital to home and need time to rest and recover. Sometimes support can be requested. So staffing support could be requested for that recovery, and it's covered by the ministry. And that's through the agency that's under Luminous, which is called GCSN. they used to be called Griffin Community Support Network. I think they're just called GCSN now, but they do something called transitional supports, which maybe that would fall under. No one's ever asked me specifically about someone who maybe is trans and going into recovery, but in general, if someone's in hospital and then recovering, GCSN might be able to provide some supports if they did need support, that funding. And if, yeah, so I would say check with GCSN for that.
Super. Chandrika has a question.
Mhm.
Can someone from Brampton join, I think, Toronto Supports and Services? So can someone from Brampton register through the DSO Toronto's office?
No, I want to say no. We do have, sometimes there are people who live with their mom in Brampton and then live with their dad in Toronto sometimes, and they kind of just have to decide which DSO they're going to apply from and just have their services out of there. But if you only live in Brampton, and sometimes if someone's homeless, say they were living in Brampton, but they're at a homeless shelter in Toronto, we usually make a call whether it's appropriate to transfer the file to Toronto if they're, not planning to return to Brampton. But in general, you would need to be registered in the DSO that you are where you live. They won't, if you have a postal code outside, they would want to know why you'd want to register in Toronto. But you can be waiting, say you're wanting housing in Toronto, you can be waiting for housing in any region in Ontario. You can be waiting for housing in all the regions of Ontario. You don't have to be specifically waiting only in Toronto. If you live in Toronto, you can wait for housing in all the DSO regions. So your actual file needs to be where you are, where you're living and residing, but you can be on the, we call it multi-region waitlisted for housing. And really for programs too. It doesn't happen often with programs, but sometimes there are programs that are, I recently just had someone who wanted to be in a day program that was in Etobicoke, but they lived in Peel region. And I said, okay, why not? I'll put you on the, the registry for both and, hopefully we can get you in. So you can be waiting. It's not as common with day programs because people can't travel as well, but for housing, yes, you can wait in all the regions.
Thank you for that. Andrea is mentioning or saying, you mentioned that you can use the DSO letter for ODSP application as proof of disability. Did you mean DSO acceptance letter or psychological assessment?
Your DSO acceptance letter. So you'll get a letter that says you are eligible for DSO and this is going to make your process of applying for ODSP easier, and it'll explain how you can use it. But you still do have to complete, there's an online, so for ODSP, you still have to go to the ODSP website, complete their online application portion, which is just sort of basic information, and then they'll contact you to gather the evidence of your disability, and then you show them your DSO letter, and then you'll have to go through the financial piece with them.
Well, I think you answered all the questions.
Good.
Yeah, thank you so much. Did you have anything else you'd like to leave us with?
I don't think so, but like I said, I've emailed Tom the copy of my presentation. So if you want to look at the links or reread anything, you can feel free to do that. And I also sent a digital version of our While You Wait document. So if you wanted to get those things just as a PDF, you can reach out to Tom, I guess, and
Yep.
feel free to share that around. Yeah, we're gonna have more things coming up. The DS, we were just talking about this before everyone came on, but the DS Info Fair is coming back for the first time since 2019. This year, or it's in 2026, but this fiscal year, I guess. So look forward to that with all the agencies coming together to do an information fair for everyone. Keep an eye out. I'll probably be doing a presentation very similar to this at the fair.
Well, we can't wait.
Yay!
So thanks so much for joining us this evening. We really appreciate all of your guidance and information. And Yeah, we'll definitely be in touch. If anyone has any questions for me, feel free to reach out and I will be sharing with you the information from this evening's presentation. So with that being said, happy Wednesday. Go
Yes.
Jays go. Have a great night,
Yay.
everyone.
Good night, everyone. Thanks.
Bye.
Good night.